this fall, and it is beginning to wind down. I pray that it has been helpful to you. I've had lots of relational conversations over these last weeks. I've enjoyed the preparation and sharing it, and I have been so proud of some of you for engaging in this and taking it with you when you leave each week and working on your relationships. So turn and tell your neighbor, it's been hard work. Some of you didn't, you must not be working on this too hard. All right. Well, I've added a week, and it's because of the special event, it's not going to be next week, but it'll be the following week. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to share a message because I've kind of kept coming back to it over these last weeks in my prep, that in Jesus, we have a promise that one day life and relationships will be like God had originally intended them to be. And so in 2 weeks from today, I'm going to finish this series, and we're going to talk about what that might look like someday and what it might mean for our lives today. But today what I want to do is I want to ask an important question. But what about all those people that I don't like? Now, I don't really have very many, but I know you do. If we've been talking now for a month and a half about relationships. What about all those people that I don't like? What does the Bible say about them? And I'll just kind of let you know that I think you know the type. They might be people that are different than you. Or you may even think, I get along with pretty much everybody, but there's this jerk in my life that I just can't get past. Well, we have a question for today, and here's the question. And it's not so much about who the people are that you don't like. We don't want you to go there, preferably. We're going to talk about some of the people who have done something positive in your life. So, who is someone who has seen value in you even when you didn't see it in yourself? Pretty profound question. Who is someone in your life that has seen value in you, maybe spoken value in you, encouraged you along the way, even when you didn't see it in yourself? And we need a couple of mic runners here. If you've not been here before, you can answer the question. You just need to get one of these fine-looking people's attention, and they'll bring you a mic. Stand up, give us a short answer, speak directly into the mic. So let's see if we can get a couple of answers here. You don't have to give names, you can give names, but who is someone who has seen value in you even when you didn't see it in yourself?
I would have to say Pastor Dale and everybody at Lighthouse. They've encouraged me in my weight loss challenge and improving my health, and I just appreciate everybody, and especially Pastor Dale.
Thank you. Come on, let's get a couple more. All right, David.
My first sponsor, Nick, he was always encouraging me and telling me what a great guy I was, and I didn't believe a word of it. So that's who came to mind immediately. So,
thank you, David.
Yeah.
Let's do two more. Anybody else here? Awkward silence never bothers me, by the way. All right, thank you. Thanks for those answers. I hope that you can identify somebody. And one of the challenges that I give you maybe this week is to say a word of thank you to that person or to those people. I have a couple of, our computer person has left the computer. Jan, can you go over to the computer? And I have a couple of road signs that I have wanted to share with you today, and we'll see if you can kind of catch a little bit of the humor in them. Keep right. Yeah, it took a minute. So, okay, the next one. Left lane ends. Go ahead. Pull your huge SUV in at the last minute. Everyone is okay with it. Isn't that great? All right. One way. Good luck figuring out which one. Caution, ramp ahead. Please reach 70 miles per hour to clear the river. I think there's one more. This one, yeah. Good luck. All right, I think that's all of them, if I remember correctly. You know, I was thinking this week, wouldn't it be nice if people wore road signs that would tell us what to expect when we engage them in life, or how to act around them? Like, stop, did not sleep well, kid up all night, don't talk to me until I've had 3 cups of coffee. Or dead end, I just had a horrible day at work, my boss and I had it out, and I'm going to take it out on you. That would be a great road sign. Now, of course, if we were going to wear them and they were going to be helpful or meaningful, some of them would have to be a little more complicated even, or deeper. For example, slow down, I just got out of an abusive relationship or one of betrayal, and I have serious, and I mean serious, trust issues. Or this one, I like this one. Caution, I had an absent father or a domineering, controlling mother, and I don't know boundaries. So I may latch on to you like a leech and suck the life out of you, or on a whim throw you to the wolves. Well, we could probably do a series on reading other people and how to respond to people when we read the signs. Honestly, though, I think we would do well by starting to read the signs of others and how they react to us. Maybe we can learn something about ourselves if we try to learn from the people in our life and how they respond to us. Maybe there are reasons people keep me at a distance. Or maybe it is me who sabotages one relationship after another. Maybe when I'm in a group talking and everyone is looking at their shoes, it's time for me to shut up and give someone else a turn. You know, we can do a lot to read, the other people and how they respond to us if we're motivated to look at ourselves. And so I was thinking about this question, what about those people that I don't like? And it occurred to me that maybe we're those people. Maybe I'm that person that other people don't really like. Remember the pyramid that we had? Some of you haven't been here long enough, but early in this series I had this pyramid, and I said the deeper the issue, I represented the people in our life community, the deeper the issues in our life, the fewer the people that we're going to necessarily really open up to and confide in. But I shared that we all need that 1 or 2 or 3 people in our life that we can really share anything, and who we can ask this question to. Is it me? Is it me? So, we're going to have a little bit of honest conversation this morning about that, and I just wanted to encourage you, because some of you are starting step studies this next week in Celebrate Recovery. And it's an in-depth step study. It's a really good step study. And one of the things I want to do, if that's you, is I want to encourage you to go in with an open mind to see what you can learn about yourself. Ask for honest feedback. That's a tough thing to do. Well, another relationship challenge that we have is with people who are different than us. In the church, oftentimes, we love to judge people whose sins are different than my own. In fact, we kind of get this mindset that my struggles or my sins are acceptable because I've domesticated them somehow. And truthfully, I just know how to hide them better. But yours are maybe a little more unacceptable. And I just wanted to share this again. I shared it a couple of weeks ago, that somehow within the faith, we have gotten the wrong impression that to love and accept someone whose lifestyle or values or even faith or religion is different than mine somehow compromises my own faith and values. It's not the truth. You can love and accept somebody whose values are completely different than yours, or whose lifestyle or whose beliefs are completely different than yours, without compromising your own faith and values, for heaven's sake. The true test of a maturing faith is to be secure in your biblical faith and values, and at the same time love people like Jesus loved people. Accept people like Jesus accepted people. How will anyone turn to Jesus for his help if they can't see Jesus in the people who follow him? You know, I have, as you know, a lot of my life is kind of lived out in the community. I don't have an office here. I don't really work out of here. And I find myself on a weekly basis and even a daily basis just meeting people and getting to know them and learning about them. And it's really taught me a lot about how to interact with people who have different life perspectives than myself. We can love them and accept them without judging them. So, what about all those people that you don't like? Here's what I want to share the rest of our time together. I want to challenge us as people here at Lighthouse to learn to see the infinite value inside of other people. To not see that which might repel you, but to actually see inside of them the infinite value that God has created in them. I've introduced you introduced in this series a book to you titled "Everybody's Normal Until You Get to Know Them" by John Ortberg. And I'm going to share a couple of things with you again from that book this morning. He begins a chapter with these words: "A man wanders into a small antique shop in San Francisco. Mostly it's cluttered with knickknacks and junk. On the floor, however, he notices what looks like an ancient Chinese vase. On closer inspection, it turns out to be a priceless relic from the Ming Dynasty, whose value is beyond calculating. It is worth everything else in the store all put together. The owner clearly has no idea about the value of this possession because it's filled with milk and his cat's drinking out of it. The man sees an opportunity for the deal of a lifetime, so he cleverly strategizes a method to obtain the vase for a fraction of its worth. That's an extraordinary cat you have, he said. How would you like to sell her for... The cat's not really for sale, said the owner. She keeps the store free of mice. Oh, I really must have her, the man said. Tell me, I'll give you $100 for the cat. She's really not worth it, laughed the owner. But if you want her that badly, she's yours. I need something to feed her from as well, continued the man. Let me throw in another $10 for the saucer that she's drinking out of. Oh, I could never do that, the man said. The saucer is actually an ancient Chinese vase from the Ming Dynasty. It is my prized possession, whose worth is beyond calculation. Funny thing though, since we've had it, I've sold 17 cats. And then he writes, the ability to assign value is one of the rarest and most precious gifts in the world. People who live deeply in community learn to discern and express the value of other human beings. They are masters of expressing love in word and gesture. They assign high worth, value, and importance to others by viewing them as priceless gifts. They see that in addition to the tags that we wear all around us, every human being carries another sticker from God that says, "This one is made in my image." I'd like you to turn with me in the Bible to Luke chapter 7. Luke chapter 7. It's page 858 in the church Bibles around you. In the Recovery Bibles, it is on page 1302. Luke 7, beginning at verse 36. Again, in the church Bibles, it is page 858. And actually in the Recovery Bible, it's 1301. Luke chapter 7, beginning at verse 36. Let me read through this story with you this morning, and then we're going to unpack it a little bit. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him, so Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman, other translations will say a prostitute, from the city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell at his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. When the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him, that she's a sinner." Then Jesus answered his thoughts. "Simon," he said to the Pharisee, "I have something to say to you." "Go ahead, teacher," Simon replied. Then Jesus told him this story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other. But neither of them could repay him, so he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, "I suppose the one for whom he canceled the larger debt." "That's right," Jesus said. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, "Look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. She didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven, so she has shown me much love. But a person who is forgiven little shows only little love." Then Jesus said to the woman, "Your sins are forgiven." The men at the table said among themselves, "Who is this man that he goes around forgiving sins?" Jesus said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." So Jesus goes into the home of a Pharisee for dinner. It's kind of an interesting idea itself because Jesus here is going into the home of pretty much someone who has invited him, whose intentions with Jesus are not very good. They're quite questionable. It's the Pharisees who put Jesus to death eventually. How do we know that this man's intentions are not that great? Well, it was customary in Jesus' day for the feet of the guest in a home to be washed. Remember that they didn't hop into their vehicle and drive around in that day. They walked everywhere that they went. They wore sandals. The roads were not paved. They were dirt. And so, their feet were often hot and dirty. And a foot washing was something that not only brought cleanliness to the person, but it felt really good. It was a customary thing of honor for the person who was entering a home. If a person who was your equal would come into the home status-wise, then a servant would often do the foot washing. But if it was someone who was important that came into your home, then the host would often do the foot washing themselves. If it was somebody that you really didn't care that much about, usually what they would do is they'd put out a basin of water and a towel and say, "Go wash your own feet." Kind of a slap in the face. For Jesus here, there's no foot washing at all. Talk about a slap in the face. I was just, just as an aside, I was just thinking about how interesting it is that before Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples and before he goes to the cross, he actually uses foot washing as an example to his disciples, to his followers, of what it means to follow him. Jesus was also offered no kiss. It was customary, and you can see that in the Middle East still today. It was customary to give a kiss on the cheek or to give a kiss on the hand, depending upon your status and the status of the other person. Olive oil was often offered. Remember, this was in a day where deodorant wasn't around every little convenience store. And so it was something that was refreshing and brought some pleasant aroma into the person and into the house. What I want to share with you this morning is that this story is a profound example of how Jesus saw through the exterior of people and saw their value and preciousness to God. The Pharisee and the people at the banquet saw this woman and only saw a prostitute and a sinner. A woman who was unclean, a woman who had been ostracized, a woman who was judged as immoral and dirty. Jesus saw a wounded heart. Jesus saw a woman with little self-worth, whose parents probably had sold her into slavery and prostitution, and now she survived. She just survived by being used and abused by men. Jesus was able to look through her exterior and see her loneliness, see the hopes that she long ago gave up on, and the dreams that she no longer has. You know, I wonder if earlier she had been somewhere where she had heard Jesus teaching, and somehow she was touched by his message of forgiveness and grace and hope. Maybe she had seen how he had treated those who were broken and those who were lonely, and now she saw him being insulted and disrespected by this person who had invited him into their home. In utter surrender, she used her tears to wash Jesus' feet, and she dried them with her hair. She could not give a traditional kiss to Jesus. It would have been vastly rejected in the community. But in humility, she did the most humbling thing a person in the Middle East would ever do, and that is kiss the feet of Jesus. She took her perfume, probably, and this is kind of a cultural thing, probably it was a little vial of perfume that actually hung around her neck, that she would wear almost as a necklace. And I can imagine her taking a dab of it in the midst of the agony of her work to drown out the smell of her abuse and her brokenness, and to give herself a whiff of grace and relief from the life that she despised. She poured it out on Jesus' feet. She poured it out for the one who saw her for what she truly was, a precious child of God, created in his image, a masterpiece of God's handiwork. And in Jesus, perhaps there was something that told her that she would no longer need to dab herself with that perfume, to hide that which she knew was the reality of her life. Need to pause for a moment there, because I know that perhaps some of you here are in that same place. The woman in the story, that might be you. Your life might be different, your issues or struggles might be different, but the pain and the brokenness that she felt and the loneliness that you feel inside, it's much the same. And one of the powerful messages I think that we get in this story that you can miss if you don't see it, I want to make sure you see it, and that is that the perfume that she had to cover the struggles in her life and the pain in her life, she no longer needed. She no longer needed. I'm not sure what your struggles might be. It might be a struggle with food or a struggle with an addiction to alcohol or drugs or something that just keeps at least giving you the ability to go through the day and to survive. And I want you to know that today you can dump it out, that you no longer need the perfume. Because there is a God who loves you. There is a God who cares for you. There's a God who so much wants to be part of your life. You know, Jesus then goes on to tell a story about forgiveness. And he says that one person is forgiven little and one is forgiven much. And then he asks, who is the most grateful? And it's kind of an easy answer. I mean, everybody got it right. It's the person who was able to, be forgiven much. And then there's this important line in this story. I want to make sure you get it. It says that Jesus turned to the woman and he said to Simon. I want you to hear that verse. It says that Jesus turned to the woman, but he was speaking to him. You got it? So Jesus turns to the woman, but he's not speaking to the woman. He's speaking to the guy who's invited him into his house. And that's important because you see what Jesus wants us to know is that he wants us to see her like he saw her. He wants us to see that woman. He wants Simon to see that woman just like he wants us to see her. Just like he wants, or like he saw her. Jesus wants us to see people like he sees people. That's the key. Again, John Ortberg writes, it's worth noting that what Jesus is not saying in this parable. He is not saying, Simon, you are a righteous man. You have hardly sinned at all. You don't need much grace. The difficulty is Simon perceives himself to be a person of little sin. That is what makes it so hard for him to be overwhelmed by God's grace. He really does think that God is getting a pretty good deal in him. He thinks of himself as a small debtor. He looks at large debt people and wonders why they can't be more righteous like he is. There's a great sin defiling this room, but it is not the sin Simon thinks. It is the sin of lips that won't kiss, knees that won't bend, eyes that would not weep, hands that will not serve, and perfume that will never leave the jar. It is the sin of a heart that will not break, a life that will not change, and a soul that will not love others. The greatest command is the command to love. The greatest sin is a refusal to obey the greatest command. Jesus says, in effect, Simon, you don't see it. You have the biggest debt of all. Dale Galloway tells the story of a young boy named Teddy Stollard. He was not the kind of kid who got invited to parties. And he slouched in his chair and he looked bored most of the time. He only spoke when called upon and then in monosyllables. He never dressed right, he had smelly clothes, and he was rather unattractive. Whenever his teacher would mark Teddy's paper, she got a certain perverse pleasure out of marking all the wrong answers. She would put the F's on the top with a little flair. She might have known better because his story was on record. First grade, Teddy is a good boy and shows promise, but has a poor home situation. Second grade, Teddy is quiet and withdrawn. His mother is terminally ill. Third grade, Teddy is falling behind. His mother died this year. His father is uninvolved. Fourth grade, Teddy is hopelessly backward. His father has moved away. Teddy's living with an aunt. He is deeply troubled. Christmas came and all the children brought presents to their school. They were carefully wrapped, except for Teddy's, which was packaged in brown paper and held together with tape and marked, "For Miss Thompson from Teddy." teacher would open the gifts one by one from the class for the class to admire. And when she opened Teddy's, it was a rhinestone bracelet with most of the stones missing and a bottle of perfume that was mostly gone. The other children started to laugh, but Miss Thompson caught herself. Snapping on the bracelet, she said, "Isn't it lovely, class? And doesn't the perfume smell so good?" At the end of the class, Teddy approached her shyly. "I'm glad you liked my gifts, Miss Thompson," he whispered. "All day long you smelled like my mom. And you look like her with that bracelet." After he left, Miss Thompson put her head down on the desk. And she cried. Frankly, she met Jesus that day. She asked God to forgive her. She prayed that God would help her see what he sees when he looks at motherless boys. When the children came back to school the next day, Miss Thompson was a new teacher. She tutored the children who needed extra help, Teddy most of all. And by the end of the year, he had caught up with all of those in his classroom and was ahead of some. After that, she didn't hear from him for quite a while, and then one day she received this note. "Miss Thompson, I wanted you to be first to know that I am graduating from high school, and I'm second in my class." 4 years later came another note. "Dear Miss Thompson, I wanted you to be the first to know I am graduating first in my class. The university has not been easy, but I liked it." 4 years later, another note. "Dear Miss Thompson, I wanted you to be the first to know that as of today, I am Theodore J. Stollard, MD. How about that? I want you to come and sit where my mother would have sat because you are the nearest thing to family I have had." The ability to assign value is one of the hardest and rarest and greatest gifts that anyone can give to the world. So what about all those people that you don't like? The message today is that it's you and me who need the changing, not them. We need to learn to see the value in others. We need to learn to see people like Jesus saw them. So you have an action plan for the week. Here it is, 3 things. Number 1, someone who you've kept at a distance is going to be approached with grace this week. You don't have to become best friends. But you're going to approach them and you're going to try to get to know a little bit more about their story. You see, that's how we build empathy, and that's how we build compassion, by entering other people's stories. Number 2, who is someone in your life that God is calling you to give value to and to honor? It might be the same person, it might be somebody different. Who is someone in your life that God is calling you to give value to and to give honor to? Because you are specially equipped to do so. Because you are learning to see people like Jesus sees people and to love people like Jesus loves people. And finally, number 3, we're going to pray that this week. We're going to pray this week that we would begin to see people like Jesus sees people, that he would give us the eyes of Jesus. One more little quote from John Ortberg. He writes, "This teaching of Jesus stands in striking contrast with the thoughts of our day. We think of people having the capacity to love who have most gotten life right. Healthy people with high self-esteem and low regret factors. Normal people. There is no such thing, dear," he writes. Jesus says the greatest lovers are those who have come face to face with their own brokenness and have been undone by grace. When I read that, I thought, man, if there is a church and a people that could change this community, they're sitting right before me. Because, we talk about it all the time. We're just kind of a group of messed up people who have come to know God's grace and have come to care for one another and who have come to create a community where people can come and find acceptance and hope. Man, if there is a people who could make a difference, it's people who have come to grips, come face to face with their own brokenness, and have been undone by God's great grace. Amen.